She was ejected from the ballroom under the gaze of hundreds of onlookers. Silence enveloped the room and not a single gaze acknowledged her existence as a person. Just laughter, icy stares, a linen dress ridiculed by silk and sequins. A voice that sliced through her like shards of glass. Did she believe this was a farmer's market? The evening was meant to unfold in tranquility. An educator dedicating her limited resources to support children in need. Yet, in just 3 minutes, they discarded her with disdain. They were mistaken. The woman they had just humiliated happened to be the wife of the most influential man present in that room. Elena Gray stood at the edge of Thornspire Hall, her fingers wrapped around a handwritten invitation, the paper yielding under her anxious touch. The magnificent marble hall shimmered beneath chandeliers that cascaded light like molten gold. The air was filled with the enchanting strains of violin music, both delicate and commanding, as elegantly dressed guests from high society twirled in their exquisite designer attire. Women adorned in shimmering gowns savored champagne, their laughter ringing out like crystal chimes. Gentlemen in finely crafted tuxedos huddled together, their murmurs heavy with aspiration. The grand columns of the hall stood tall, their surfaces gleaming like mirrors, capturing the lavishness of the crowd and the subtle elegance of Elena, a mere whisper in soft ivory linen. The dress she wore was understated, cascading softly to her ankles with long sleeves that had a subtle flare. She selected it from a quaint boutique in Brooklyn, captivated by its subtle sophistication and the way it embraced her like a second skin. Her shoes, simple flats with a subtle scuff on the toe, exuded comfort and practicality. She had traversed countless miles in those shoes, grading papers at her kitchen table, sharing stories with her third graders. Her dark hair was gathered into a relaxed bun, with a few strands softly cascading around her face, and she adorned herself with no jewelry, opting for minimal makeup, just a hint of lip balm. In her hands, the invitation displayed her name in meticulous ink, a heartfelt letter from the Gala's organizer expressing gratitude for her generous contribution. No QR code, no embossed gold, merely words, heartfelt and straightforward. Elena inhaled deeply, her gaze sweeping across the room. She had never encountered a setting quite like this, where affluence draped itself as thickly as the velvet curtains and every look seemed to carry a price. She had arrived for the children, her pupils, their families, those in need of books, coats, and opportunity. Every cent she had saved, every extra dollar from her teaching salary was dedicated to this charity, a fund aimed at supporting underprivileged schools. She was taken by surprise at the invitation, having no desire for any sort of celebration. Yet the letter had come and she sensed a subtle obligation to be present, to witness the outcome of her sacrifice. She advanced, her shoes making no sound against the marble floor. The crowd shifted momentarily, then reformed, their gazes gliding over her as if she were a mere phantom. A hostess clad in a sleek black dress, her hair neatly pulled back, approached with a smile that was polished yet barely there. She examined Elena thoroughly, her eyes pausing on the linen dress and the worn shoes. "Apologies, but this is a private event," she stated, her tone sharp. "Perhaps you're in search of the entrance to the kitchen?" Elena's lips formed a courteous smile, her voice gentle yet firm. "I was invited. I'm Elena Gurr, your name's not on the list," the hostess interrupted, her eyes flicking to a tablet illuminated with names and check marks. "Kindly make way for the esteemed guests." Elena extended the letter, its edges gently crinkled. "This is my invitation." It arrived straight from the hostess, barely acknowledged it, dismissively waving her hand. "Invitations written by hand? We exclusively accept digital check-in. Printed stationery is not accepted." Her tone oozed with contempt, as if Elena had presented a napkin covered in crayon scribbles. A soft whisper floated through the air. The guests shifted, their gazes sharpening. A woman clad in a sapphire gown, her neck adorned with pearls, leaned toward her companion and whispered, just loud enough to be heard, "Is that linen?" Her companion, gripping a sparkling clutch, suppressed a giggle. Did she believe this was a farmer's market? A sudden, piercing voice, deep and commanding, interrupted. "Unable to purchase genuine footwear, yet aspires to connect with a billionaire?" The circle of friends laughed softly, their sparkling glasses glimmering in the glow. As Elena stood, gripping her letter, a man in a velvet blazer advanced, his voice resonating throughout the hall. "Observe her feigning innocence," he scoffed, swirling his whiskey glass. "I have a feeling she penned that note herself to stir up some chaos at the gathering." The audience surged with excitement, their laughter piercing like broken glass, phones illuminating the scene as they captured images of her soiled gown. A woman in a shimmering gold gown leaned closer, her fragrance intoxicating, her words laced with malice. "Her presence there is a source of embarrassment for both herself and us." Another guest, his cufflinks shimmering, echoed her gentle tone. Beckoned in a shrill tone, eliciting more laughter. Elena's expression was unchanging, her gaze locked onto the chandelier overhead, yet her knuckles turned pale as they gripped the letter tightly. Their cruelty transcended mere words. It became a spectacle, a ravenous hunt, leaving her exposed for their amusement. Elena remained motionless, her expression serene, her fingers gently holding the letter. She remained composed, her voice steady, yet her hazel eyes, rich and reminiscent of autumn, revealed an inner tempest. She sensed the heaviness of their gazes, the way they exposed her, evaluating her value by the fabric of her attire. She yearned to articulate her thoughts, to clarify, yet the words remained imprisoned within her, burdensome like boulders. A woman entered, her aura captivating everyone in the room. Vanessa Laurie, adorned in shimmering jewels, her crimson gown embracing her form like a second skin. Her golden locks were intricately styled into a sophisticated updo, and her gaze, as frigid as stone, assessed Elena as if she were merely a trivial adornment. "Darling," Vanessa said, her voice smooth yet pointed. "This gathering isn't meant for individuals of your kind. Consider participating in a local church fundraiser. There's no need to worry about a dress code." Vanessa Laurie moved around Elena with a predatory grace, the sound of her heels creating a purposeful cadence. "You believed you could just stroll in here?" She spoke with a volume that carried to the closest tables. "This isn't a second-hand shop, my dear, you're in over your head." With a swift flick of her wrist, she signaled for the waiter, but in a moment of clumsiness, she sent a tray of canapes tumbling toward Elena, causing shrimp and sauce to splatter across her dress. The audience inhaled sharply, then erupted in laughter, a symphony of joy at the performance. "Oh, how clumsy of me," Vanessa purred, her eyes sparkling with a hint of wickedness. A nearby guest murmured, "She's finished for the moment." As more individuals participated, their voices began to intertwine. "What a disaster, she ought to have been more aware." Elena stood still, sauce cascading onto the marble, her dignity challenged, yet her gaze held firm, unwavering. Vanessa Laurie's complexion faded as Alexander's words resonated, her diamonds now a harsh illumination of her embarrassment. Guests averted their gazes, their murmurs cutting through the air. "She's done for, Hawthorne will obliterate her." Her phone vibrated insistently, messages from her board flooding in, alerting her to canceled contracts and a decline in stocks. She attempted to laugh, to flip her hair, yet her hand quivered, causing her drink to spill. A woman who had once admired her took a step back, her smile vanished, leaving Vanessa surrounded by a multitude of turned-away gazes. Lori Lux's logo, once a prominent feature on every gala screen, disappeared from the night's program by morning, leaving behind an empty void. Her empire, constructed on perception, shattered beneath the burden of a single teacher's integrity, her name now a cautionary tale murmured in corporate meetings. The audience chuckled, a harsh symphony that reverberated against the stone. Elena's grip on the letter grew firmer, yet her face remained composed. She parted her lips to reply, her voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "I'm here to support the cause." Just as she was about to conclude, two security guards emerged, their dark suits contrasting sharply with the dazzling throng around them. The one with height, his jaw clenched, was the first to speak. "Excuse me, we have received some concerns regarding a guest who is not registered." His companion, more compact yet sturdier, moved in closer. "It seems we need to guide you out now." The imposing guard clenched his hold on Elena's arm, his fingers pressing into her skin as he dragged her toward the doors. "Quit hesitating," he commanded, his voice resonating through the crowd, his expression radiating authority. His partner leaned in with a sly grin, whispering softly, "You're causing quite a stir, ma'am. It would have been better to remain at home." Nearby spectators applauded, encouraging them further, their cheers growing louder. "Remove her from the situation. She's disrupting the atmosphere." A woman adorned with a feathered headpiece playfully tossed a napkin at Elena, delighting in its fluttering descent to her feet with a soft giggle. "Come on, darling," she urged, igniting another wave of laughter. Elena's heel snagged once more, her arm throbbing, yet she remained silent, refusing to plead. Her silence merely intensified their disdain, their applause forming a cacophony that enveloped her. Elena felt a surge of emotion, yet her expression stayed calm and composed. "There's been an error," she stated, extending the letter once more. "If you merely—" The taller guard seized her arm, his hold steady yet gentle. "Shall we proceed, madam?" She struggled to maintain her balance, but her frayed heel slipped on the polished marble, a subtle squeak interrupting the soothing hum of the violin. The audience's amusement intensified, their devices subtly lifted, recording her misstep. Her eyes burned, not from agony, but from the burden of their harshness, the way they regarded her as something beneath humanity. Suddenly a glass tipped over. A woman draped in emerald silk, her lips curling into a smirk, allowed her wine to spill forth, quite by accident. The crimson liquid splattered against the edge of Elena's dress, saturating the ivory fabric and gathering in a puddle on the ground. "Oh dear," the woman exclaimed, her voice ringing out for everyone to catch. "It's wise to depart before anyone confuses you for an inanimate object." The lady in emerald silk approached with a graceful stride after the wine cascaded, her smirk deepening as she took in the scene before her. "Oh, darling, that dress is completely destroyed," she remarked, her tone laced with feigned sympathy. "Perhaps you could clean floors to save up for a new one." The audience erupted, their devices raised, capturing the dark mark expanding on Elena's hem. A gentleman in a bow tie exclaimed, "Someone fetch her a mop." As the voices joined in, their jeers unyielding. "She's a complete train wreck. I bet she's just here for the complimentary snacks." Another glass tipped over. Champagne this time, drenching her sleeve, the icy liquid seeping through. Elena's hand trembled, the letter wrinkling more with each passing moment, yet her expression revealed no fury, only a calm determination that rendered their malice insignificant, pitiful. The audience erupted, their mirth cutting through the air like a sharp edge. Elena's hand shook, the letter wrinkling slightly in her grasp. She gazed at the stain, the wine infiltrating the fabric, and experienced a subtle pang, not for the dress, but for the evening, for the children she had come to assist, for the dignity that had been torn away in mere moments. The guards ushered her forward, guiding her to the imposing grand doors which stood silent yet weighty on their hinges. The marble floor extended infinitely ahead, the chandeliers fading into a haze as her eyes ached. She remained silent, offered no resistance. She strode alongside them, her chin lifted, each step purposeful, despite the murmurs of the crowd trailing behind her like an unrelenting wave. As the doors were about to shut, a voice cut through the atmosphere, sharp and authoritative. "She is by my side." The melody stumbled. The audience shifted, a unified intake of breath filling the atmosphere. A tall figure in a meticulously crafted black suit advanced, his aura reminiscent of a tempest unleashing its fury. Alexander Hawthorne, the enigmatic tech mogul, his name a mere murmur in corporate circles, his visage seldom seen in the public eye. His dark hair was slicked back, his jawline defined, his eyes a steely gray, fixed intently on Elena. He advanced with intention, each stride measured, the atmosphere shifting around him. Astonished murmurs spread among the attendees who had not anticipated his presence. Hawthorne Industries stood as a giant, its groundbreaking innovations transforming urban landscapes, its strategic investments altering the course of markets. He was an enigma, a specter who shunned celebrations, lenses, and throngs. Yet here he was, traversing the marble floor, his eyes fixed unwaveringly on the woman in the stained linen dress. He approached Elena, his hands seeking hers, warm and unwavering. The sentinels halted, their holds slackening, their visages draining of color. He paid no mind to them, ignored the throng, his gaze fixed solely on her. "This is my wife," he said, his voice soft yet powerful, reaching out with warmth to every corner of the hall. "Elena Grace Hawthorne, the woman you just belittled, the woman who eschews designer labels, yet possesses more dignity in her quietude than any of you do in your glittering jewels." Silence enveloped the room, the atmosphere heavy with disbelief. Vanessa Laurie's smile faded, her diamonds losing their luster beneath the heaviness of his words. The woman in emerald silk grasped her empty glass, her smirk vanished. The hostess gazed intently at her tablet, her fingers quivering with anticipation. The laughter of the crowd faded away, giving way to a silence so profound it seemed to weigh down the very walls. Alexander's gaze scanned the room, sharp and unwavering. "This charity gala was intended to assist children in need," he remarked, "yet you just paraded a teacher who contributed her entire savings to aid them, a woman who takes the subway, enjoys homemade sandwiches, and teaches kids to read while you indulge in your champagne and ridicule her shoes." He paused, allowing the words to linger, cutting and clear. "Perhaps we ought to reflect on who among us is genuinely striving to create an impact." Silence enveloped the room. Not a soul had the courage. The sentinels withdrew. With heads lowered and radios muted, they stood in quietude. Elena stood beside him, her hands clasped in his, her expression serene, yet her eyes sparkled with a fierce, unyielding spirit. Her silence spoke volumes, a subtle power that enveloped the space. Alexander faced her, his demeanor gentle, his voice lowering to a secretive murmur meant solely for her ears. "Are you all right?" She nodded, her lips forming a gentle curve, a smile that radiated grace without a hint of anger. He grasped her hand firmly, then turned back to the crowd, his voice resolute. "Wishing you a delightful evening ahead. We will be remaining here." He guided her into the hall, the crowd separating effortlessly before them. The violinists cautiously picked up their notes, their hesitance palpable as if they feared shattering the stillness that enveloped them. Elena strolled alongside him, her soiled dress glimmering under the chandelier's glow, the wine a mark of their harshness, her dignity serving as a protective barrier. Visitors averted their eyes, devices in hand, their murmurs hushed. Vanessa Laurie remained motionless, her diamonds dulled, her expression a portrait of fear. The lady in emerald silk glided toward the rear, her glass left behind on a table. The hostess struggled with her tablet, her poise completely lost. Elena and Alexander paused in the heart of the room, beside a table adorned with white silk, its centerpiece a flowing arrangement of orchids. He drew out a chair for her, each motion intentional, subtly asserting her position. She sat poised, her posture impeccable, her hands neatly clasped, the letter firmly held in her grasp. He settled into the seat next to her, his presence forming a barrier against the scrutiny of the room. The gala pressed on, yet the atmosphere had shifted. Whispers filled the air, and smiles felt strained. Guests averted their eyes from Elena, their expressions strained with a mix of shame and apprehension. A waiter came over, presenting a glass of champagne, but she politely refused with a subtle shake of her head, her tone delicate. "Could I have some water, please?" He nodded, swiftly returning with a glass, his hands quivering just a bit as he presented it to her. Across the room, Vanessa Laurie leaned toward a man in a navy tuxedo, her voice a hushed whisper filled with intensity. "How was I to have known?" She let out a sharp hiss. She appeared to be an inconspicuous figure. The gentleman, his cufflinks shimmering, shrugged, his gaze flickering towards Alexander. "You chose the wrong target, Vanessa. He holds on to grudges." Elena took a sip of her water, her eyes unwavering as she surveyed the room. She sensed their gazes, their murmurs, yet they no longer pierced her soul. Her mind wandered to her students. Lila had a passion for sketching stars. Jamal, who took his time with each word but persevered unwaveringly. Maria generously offered her lunch to Elena when she realized Elena had forgotten hers. They were the reason for her journey, the driving force behind her sacrifices. This space, these individuals, they did not determine her essence. Indeed, she did. Alexander leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's no obligation for you to remain. We can depart at your convenience." She faced him, her gaze locking onto his, filled with warmth and assurance. "I'm staying," she declared, "for the children." He nodded, a subtle smile cracking his serious demeanor, a glimmer of pride shining in his eyes. The night progressed, the vibrancy of the crowd faded, their allure diminished. A woman clad in a shimmering silver gown made her way to their table, her steps tentative, her smile tinged with uncertainty. "Mrs. Hawthorne," she uttered, her voice trembling. "Greetings, I am Clara Voss, representing the charity board." We were unaware of your generous contribution. It's remarkable. May we recognize you this evening?" Elena pondered, her fingers lightly grazing the letter, then she shook her head in contemplation. "Recognize the children," she instructed. "They are the ones of significance." Clara nodded, her eyes shimmering as she stepped back, murmuring to a colleague. "She is truly remarkable." The table was adorned with plates featuring seared scallops, roasted figs, and delicate greens, all elegantly drizzled with truffle oil. Elena dined in silence, each motion deliberate, her mind wandering to distant realms. She envisioned her apartment, the modest table strewn with lesson plans, the kettle whistling as she prepared her tea. She recalled Alexander, how he had read Plato in that library long ago, his voice gentle as he recited lines to her, the rain softly tapping against the windows. A simple wedding, just the two of them and a justice of the peace. She wore a cotton dress while he donned a sweater, their vows exchanged in hushed tones like cherished secrets. They had embraced this existence, serene and concealed, uniquely theirs. A gentleman clad in a gray suit made his way over, his complexion tinged with color and his tie hanging askew. "Mr. Hawthorne, this is Gerald Klein from Klein Enterprises. I would like to express my apologies for what happened earlier. We were completely unaware." Alexander's gaze was frigid, resolute. There was no requirement to understand her identity in order to regard her with humanity. Gerald faltered, his hands moving aimlessly, then withdrew, his shoulders drooping in defeat. Elena brushed her fingers against Alexander's arm, speaking softly. "Release it." He gazed at her, tension evident in his jaw, then gave a slight nod, his hand enveloping hers. "For you," he said, and she understood the sincerity behind his words, aware of the tempest he could summon if she dared to inquire, yet she chose not to. Her strength lay not in retribution. In her quietude, she made the decision to elevate herself. The auction commenced, a polished MC in formal attire announcing the offerings, a luxurious yacht weekend, an exquisite diamond necklace, a private jet excursion. Bids surged, voices clashed, egos displayed. Elena absorbed the sounds around her, her expression calm, her thoughts focused on the children. As the MC revealed a fund dedicated to school libraries, Clara Voss stepped onto the stage, her voice unwavering yet filled with emotion. "This evening, a remarkable gift has come our way, one that will transform lives," she remarked. A generous individual contributed all her resources, every penny saved, every effort invested for the benefit of our children. She requested to stay unnamed, yet her spirit is present, filling the space. The audience clapped, their applause courteous yet lacking in sincerity. Elena sensed the grip of Alexander's hand grow firmer around hers, his pride burning softly beneath the surface. She had no use for their applause, no desire for their attention. She had accomplished what she set out to achieve. Vanessa Laurie lingered at a remote table, her complexion wan, her diamonds lacking their usual brilliance. She attempted to engage, to share a laugh, yet the atmosphere had shifted against her. Guests murmured her name, their voices cutting through the air. Her company, Laurie Lux, depended on Hawthorne's contracts, and she was well aware of it. For a fleeting instant, she met Elena's gaze before diverting her eyes, her fingers nervously twisting the napkin in her lap. The night grew darker, with chandeliers illuminating the space and creating elongated shadows. Elena stood up, her dress bearing the marks of the moment, the letter securely hidden in her pocket. Alexander stood beside her, his arm a firm support. They approached the stage where Clara stood, her gaze inviting and full of warmth. "We raised 10 million tonight," Clara whispered, her grip tightening around Elena's hand. "Due to your influence." Elena shook her head, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "Due to all individuals involved." Yet, the room held the secret within its walls. Devices vibrated, displays illuminating as attendees shared, their words evolving. Chardelena Grace, # genuine class. A photograph captured her alongside Alexander, her dress marred, yet her posture unwavering, spreading like wildfire. By morning, she would become a name, a narrative, the billionaire's wife who adorns herself in a way that defies convention. She would be recognized not for her attire, but for the brilliance she radiated. As they approached the doors, Alexander hesitated, retrieving an item from his coat, a small bouquet of sunflowers, their petals vibrant like the laughter of her students. He passed them to her, his voice barely audible. "There's no need for you to stand out, Elena. You shine brightly." She accepted the flowers, her fingers lightly grazing his, her eyes shimmering yet resolute. The audience observed in hushed stillness as they exited, the doors shutting softly behind them. The hall seemed desolate in her absence, its sparkle faded, its joy laid bare. The night air was crisp, with the city buzzing softly just beyond the marble steps. Elena embraced the sunflowers, their fragrance anchoring her in the moment. Alexander's hand grasped hers as they stepped into the shadows, an unknown realm, unyielding, sufficient. The following day, the Gala's guest list transformed into a blacklist, targeting companies associated with the most vocal critics. Klein Enterprises, Voss Media, and several others found themselves facing the fury of Hawthorne. Contracts were cut, partnerships ended, stocks fell sharply, and the news was relentless. Hawthorne's retribution was swift. The man in the velvet blazer who had labeled Elena a fraud saw his company's worth drop by 50% overnight, leading to his ousting by noon. The woman in emerald silk, her champagne splash of a viral clip, lost her influencer deal, her followers abandoning her with a swift, # cancel emerald. Once amused, the guests now hurriedly sent their apologies, filling Elena's inbox, which she chose to overlook. The room's harshness, once a momentary excitement, turned into their downfall, each name linked to a teacher's subtle resolve, her elegance, their unraveling. If this tale resonated with you as deeply as it did with us, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share your favorite twist in the comments, and subscribe for more. True elegance speaks softly, making its presence felt without a word, transforming the atmosphere around it.